Diablo IV is just getting kicked off here with a launch on June 6th, and a lot of people are kind of jumping through a ton of builds of what characters they're going to play, which builds they're going to play. But in this video, I'm going to truncate all of my build videos down to a quick overview of each one. Now, keep in mind the majority of these builds are theory crafted because they were made before the actual early access period went live. But from people playtesting them with my personal friends or my own playtesting of them, they actually are 100% viable and actually quite good. And that's the one big thing I want to say before we jump into this video. And before I even have that diatribe, you can quickly navigate to each one of the builds as broken up by class if you so wish. And that way you can just kind of quickly get an overview for it. And in the upper right corner of that respective section, you'll find a link to that whole video, which breaks it down on a per level basis. But outside of that, I want you to know that every single build in Diablo IV is extremely viable. Some websites have put up, hey, you know what? That's an F tier build. That's a D tier build. That's not the case, especially if you are leveling up this game for the very first time. I cannot stress enough that you play the build that you want to play. Have fun with the game that you purchase with your money and the way you want to do it, because the nice thing about the game is there is a ton of build variety. And as long as you have a really strong set of kind of basic things down, you're going to just succeed fine in the game. Everything in the game, I think, honestly has either a B or a C tier at absolute complete worst. There's really no F and D tiers to this game. So you can go ahead and jump into any point that interests you the most, like I said, with those chapters below, and I'll go ahead and give you a per level breakdown in each video as it is. But let's go ahead and get started here on my best builds for Diablo IV as you're leveling and for beginners. All right, so to start us off, we're going to be doing our Odin Druid build. And this is a very fun one themed around Odin and his two wolves that are hanging around with him all the time. So our basic skill is going to be Storm Strike, which is a really cheap source of both damage reduction. You gain 25% DR for 3 seconds after dealing damage with Storm Strike, and immobilization. Our core skill is going to be Hurricane here, which has a guaranteed slow on it right here. So you're going to be able to CC things very early in the game for yourself, getting slow out there. And you'll be able to do quite a little bit as soon as you kind of layer in some other fun stuff. Our defensive is Blood Howl, which is probably one of the best defensives in the game. For 15-second cooldown, you're going to have 20% life gain just immediately. And as you enhance this, kills reduce the cooldown by 1 second. And now Blood Howl generates 20 spirit for you, which you're going to have an issue with as you're playing a druid. And you get this passive 15% damage reduction. So now this one ability generates spirit, generates life, and it generates DR for you, as well as being on a 15-second cooldown that is easily broken down with kills. It's a great, great ability for the Odin Druid here. You're going to be using also your wolves here. They're just kind of a fun little sprinkling into the build. They're a cheap source of fortify, and they also have the chance to do 20% damage to things that are immobilized, stunned, slowed, or poisoned. And you're going to be able to do tons of slow with your Hurricane, which is also going to slow things down. And they deal 20% less damage. And you have these passives here that are going to increase their run time. You're going to deal more damage, and another lightning bolt's going to start crashing down. You've got this where another lightning bolt starts crashing down. There's lightning everywhere because Cataclysm, guess what? It's just nothing but lightning, and it knocks things back. You also get this one to increase its duration, and it now makes things vulnerable. So you get all these fun layers in this build with being able to take advantage of so many fun things. You get Perfect Storm at the very end here. Storm skills that you cast grant 1 spirit and deal 15% increased damage when damaging a vulnerable, Cataclysm, immobilized, Storm Strike, or slowed, Hurricane, and Tornado. So you're always going to be stacking these things up and getting tons and tons of increased damage and spirit from all of your storm skills. It's a really, really awesome, fun build that is just thematic, juicy, and enjoyable. You can go ahead and find the per level breakdown as well as how we approach the aspects and certain things of the actual build as you're leveling up in its respective video in the upper right hand corner. Next up is our Hammer of the Ancients Barbarian leveling build, which relies on using Lunging Strike, which is a very fun ability with good 50% lucky hit as a great fury generator. Of course, you'll be using Hammer of the Ancients as our big linchpin here, just dropping bombs of damage as you get up. Now, a lot of people will probably go with Whirlwind. I personally do not enjoy Whirlwind. I don't find it a very fun thing to do in the game. Your big focus here is going to be on two-handed bludgeoning weapons. And the important thing about this is what this means is you can put aspects and other fun things on your dual wielding weapons or your two-handed slashing weapon and constantly be swapping out your two-handed bludgeoning weapon while you level. This way you get the benefit of all of your aspects, especially on your two-handed weapon, which increases aspect effect by 100%. And still increase your DPS by swapping out to the best bludgeoning weapon you can while you are leveling. That's a crucial tip. Definitely do that. But as we progress through this, we'll be using both Warcry and Rallying Cry to get movement bonuses, resource generation bonuses, all sorts of fun things. This gives you Unstoppable, it gives you Fury generation and resource generation increase. It's just such a good ability. And Warcry as well is going to help you increase the damage you do, gives you Berserking, and you're going to also get Fortify out of it. You're going to get Leap as a really good functional movement skill that gives you a little bit of knockback, reduces the cooldown, and it also gains Fury for you, which is really huge because you're going to rely on overwhelming amount of Fury to do a ton of damage. And I'll explain that in a second here. Now for our not these are not ultimates, our weapon masteries, we're just going to completely ignore this section, picking up our Thick Skin for Fortify increase and Pit Fighter for increased damage to close enemies and gain 6% distant damage reduction, which is pretty cool. For our ultimate is the bread and butter, Corlic, Talic, and Matawak. You have your Call of the Ancients here. I hate that that's like pushing it all the way at the top. Our Call of the Ancients, which is a really fun ability. Here we go. And it is awesome. You press it and you basically have a guaranteed way to completely instantly gib a boss. They get the attack speed and bonuses here, and they just get Fury, they get slow, they get a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening with them. And they're just, it's a really fun punch something in the face and rip it down fast button. Your last thing here is Unbridled Rage. So core skills, Hammer of the Ancients, it's now dealing 135% increased damage, but it costs 100% more Fury. So it is now going to, of course, be affected by some things. But you are going to be bleeding things left and right. So it's going to allow you to do a ton of additional damage with Hamstring. Your bleeding affects slow enemies. And you kind of jump over to your gears and skills, and you get stuff like Ancestral Force, Hammer of Ancients, quakes outwards, dealing damage to its enemies. And you get Aspect of the Umbral. Restore 1 to 4 of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. Well, you're bleeding things, and they are now going to be slowed. So every time you hit something, it becomes slowed and you regenerate Fury and you get a ton of bonuses. You also get this for crit strike damage on your crowd controlled enemies. So this build is very simple and very humble to start, but it really, really, really pops off, especially as you just kind of get so many abilities that are really going to be focused on generating this Fury that then is dumped in a massive way using Hammer of the Ancients, because you gain more Fury for 5 seconds for each enemy damaged by Hammer of the Ancients, stacking up to 10 times. And this is the most crucial one. Hammer of the Ancients deals 1% additional damage for each point of Fury you had when using it. If you have a ton of Fury, you're going to get a ton of damage bonus onto Hammer of the Ancients, which is increased even further by your Unbridled Rage. Moving into the Sorceress, we have, or Sorcerer, depending on, you have the Firewall Sorcerer. Now, a lot of people probably are going to go with Meteor or like Ice Orb, stuff like that, but I've always really wanted to make Firewall work, and we did it here today with the Firewall Sorcerer. So you're going to start off with Firebolt, and eventually you're going to start off too with Fireball, and you're going to pivot out of that once you get Firewall. But what this build relies upon is using this as your basic ability, and then using Teleport to deal AoE damage, which is nice, but it gives you 30% damage reduction, which is stupid good. You also have Ice Armor here, which is a great source of barrier. Also helps regenerate your mana, and it's also going to freeze things, which is lovely. But the big one here is Frost Nova. You use Frost Nova, it freezes things. It's nice and all that action. You kill enemies that are frozen, it reduces the cooldown, but get this bad boy. Every time you press the button, everything around you becomes vulnerable for 4 seconds, increased to 6 seconds against bosses. So it's an instant vulnerable button that you press it, and then you just go to town with all of your other resources. Now, into our Hydra, we have these bad guys that are just going to be constantly shooting things. And I'm going to talk about burning in a little bit here, where they're just constantly going to be pouring out damage for you. And you're going to also get Meteor, but it's not going to be an active skill that you're using, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then you're also going to get Firewall, which is going to be a huge one for you, because obviously this is kind of like the linchpin of the build. And you're going to skip out on all your ultimates and pick up Combustion. So your burning effects deal 2% increased damage per unique source of burning you have applied to the enemy. If the enemy is burning from 3 or more sources, the bonus is doubled. So this is a source of burning. These things now burn, and they continue to burn for 3 seconds after leaving a Firewall. Well, this Hydra with Summon Hydras, now they burn. This guy up here, well, now they burn. Critical Strike with Firebolt increases the burning damage you deal to the enemy by 20%. So this all comes back together as 4 separate sources of burning. Well, why don't we add a 5th one in? Because now we got ourselves a Meteor. So that is going to add to that amount. And since 3 or more, it doubles the percentage bonus, right? That is absolutely crucial. Also, Meteor will be one of our enchantments, because read that. Lucky hit, up to 8% chance for a meteor to fall on enemies. And with this passive, it's a 50% chance for lucky hits to happen. So that it happens to all of our skills. That is sexy, because meteor, we're leveling it up. So at that time it says 8% chance that it drops a level 5 meteor. With enhanced meteor, that has a 30% chance to drop an additional meteor if it hits 3 or more enemies. And then you get an aspect which has it drop meteorites along with the meteor. It's just stupid. And then the firewall here is going to be your other enchantment. Each time an enemy takes burning damage, there's a 5% chance to spawn 2 firewalls underneath them for 3 seconds. So it's just going to be carnage. It's going to be a charnel house. And I think you're going to really enjoy this build because you're going to have meteors falling from the sky, firewalls ripping all over the place, hydras spitting crap at everything, and these lucky hits are going to be just popping off left and right. So hopefully you enjoy this build. Moving into our archer build for the rogue, we have probably one of my favorite builds on this entire list. And it was really hard for me to choose playing the Necromancer over this build. I just love the Necromancer, so I went that. But the Archer build here is just damn awesome. So you have Forceful Arrow as your basic attack. And if you've never played Rogue, Rogue is the only one that does not have a resource generating ability because their resource, energy, is automatically replenishing, much like a World of Warcraft Rogue. So Forceful Arrow is used to generate combo points because we're doing specialization combo points. And you build those combo points to then use Penetrating Shot. And the combo points will make Penetrating Shot have an 80% lucky hit. And Penetrating Shot, well, it penetrates through things exactly as it says. And as you enhance it, it increases the damage per enemy it pierces. And then you get Advanced Penetrating Shot. And when cast with full energy, Penetrating Shot will slow all enemies by 50%. Elite enemies are then knocked down. Important things to know, because Forceful Arrow can knock things back. Those are all great things because you get Stutter Step, critically striking things, increases your movement speed. You have Dark Shroud, which increases your movement speed. You have Caltrops, which is going to slow things down. You have this thing that increases your crit strike chance if things are knocked back or knocked down. There's so much synergy in this build. Dark Shroud is amazing. It's going to give you 55% damage reduction. And as you fully level it up, it's also going to give you 20% movement speed. So you're going to be zipping around the map at a very, very early level, which is really going to increase your leveling speed because your movement speed is going to be through the damn roof. In this build alone, I think you have 45% innate movement speed. That doesn't include the stuff that you get from your boots natively, which is like, I don't know, 12% at level 20. I don't know. It's something really, really, really high. So you're going to be really zipping around the map and having a lot of fun. Now, the big thing here are your imbuements. The way these work for Rogue, if you've never played, you cast the spell Shadow Imbuement, and the next 2 imbuable skill casts, which is our only skill is Penetrating Shot that's imbuable, will be a shadow ability that explodes and does shadow damage. It infects them. In 6 seconds, they'll just basically die and explode shadow damage all over the place. And you use this ability that anytime something dies with shadow damage, you get 10 energy. So you use this to clear room and you're constantly replenishing your energy. But then you use Poison Imbuement when you come against a boss because it gets 140% base weapon damage against, or base damage against them as poison damage. And you double this, there's a way to double this. There it is, Lucky Hit. Poison and Imbue skills have a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poisoning damage over time. So there's a chance that this just natively goes up to 280% poison damage. It's disgusting. You get this to help increase that they deal less damage. This increases the poison damage. You move even faster here with haste, while at or above 50% max energy, 15% more movement speed. It's disgusting. And then you've got precision. So crit strikes with marksman skills grant you precision. You gain 4% increased crit strike per stack of precision up to 20%. When you reach max precision, your next marksman skill is a guaranteed crit strike that deals 40% increased crit strike damage, then consumes all stacks of precision. It is disgusting because it means here you get 120% crit strike damage because you get all those bonuses from the previous stacks and then the 40 stack. So it's 80% at max with all 20 stacks plus the 40% puts you at 120. It is such a fun build. And then you get this one aspect, Trick Shot. So whenever Penetrating Shot damages an enemy, 2 additional arrows split off to either side. These arrows are penetrating shots, but they do not split. So basically, you shoot into a room with your Penetrating Shot that's got Shadow Imbuement. It's ripping all over the place, doing more damage the more things it pierces through, splitting off into more arrows, doing tons of shadow explosions that are then replenishing all of your energy. It is such a sick rogue build, and everyone's going twisted daggers, and that's cool, that's fine, twisting blades, whatever. But this is the real one. This is the one that I think a lot of people are sleeping on, and it is so damn fun. All right, it is time for the last one on the list, the one that I'm personally playing, my Bloody Golem build. So this is going to be using blood abilities to maximize as much blood damage as possible and using a real girthy, tanky blood golem. So what you're going to be doing here is using hemorrhage to do that damage and get yourself an essence generator, and then you're going to switch into blood lance. Now you can also go for blood surge. Either one of these is going to be just fine. If I'm being totally honest, these videos were theory crafted up until launch. And now that I've actually jumped into the game, I'm considering pivoting this to Blood Surge to really get a sense for how it does, because it has such high damage potential with the way Fortify works. And I'll talk about that at the end of the build. But Blood Lance is going to give you a nice range ability that'll also pierce through and do additional damage. And then also has a chance to increase your attack speed and help with essence generation, which you are going to have tons of issues with. Eventually, we're going to pivot here into Blood Mist towards the end of the build, but we want to make sure we get 5 points into Corpse Explosion and an enhanced Corpse Explosion to increase that radius, because it's just so good. It doesn't cost any essence, and it blows everything up. And you use this ability, so now it's a resource generator for you. You use Corpse Explosion, you get 9 essence. It's great. You're going to use Decrepify too to slow things down and reduce their damage. And as you jump into some of the latter portions of this, you're going to use like Tides of Blood to increase the amount of damage you do from overpower damage. That's really the name of the game here, is doing tons of overpower damage. That's how blood gets a lot of its damage going. We'll talk about that with the Wrathmob ability. But our ultimate is Blood Wave. Conjure a tidal wave of blood that deals 90% damage and knocks back. And then it slows enemies by 50% for 4 seconds. And it also will leave behind 3 blood orbs, which can help you out with health or what have you. But our final ability here is Wrathma's Vigor. Increase your max life by 10%. After being healthy for 15 seconds, your next blood skill overpowers, which is a bonus to your damage based off the difference or the sum of your health and your Fortify health. So this is where Blood Surge comes into play, where you can get a lot of really good goodies off of that. But this ability here, right? Your blood skills now deal 15% increased overpower damage. This is doubled if you're this bonus is doubled if you're healthy. So that's 30% if you're healthy when Wrathma's triggers. So then you use that on Blood Wave, which just allows you to do so much damn damage. It is such a room clearing ability. I absolutely love it here. Also, will healthy your bloody skills deal 18% increased damage? Well, that's a bloody skill. And also Transfusion, they heal your minions. That's all right. You don't even need that. Below, if you receive 10% more healing from all sources. There was another one I wanted to focus on, but I cannot find it right now. But the big thing here is that all this kind of comes together with your golem, because you're using standalone for damage reduction. You're using your minions deal 30% increased damage while you're close to them, which you will be. They will get an increase to their attack speed if they're healthy, and they cannot lose more than 75% health from one single damage resource. But the biggest one on this list is this guy right here, Memento Mori. Sacrificing both skeletal warriors and skeletal mages increases their sacrifice bonuses by 60%. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Gears and skills. Our skeletal warriors are sacrificed in the skirmisher section for plus 5% crits chance. That is awesome. And look at this. Overpower damage is increased by 40%. Both of those numbers do not reflect the 60% bonus you get from Memento Mori. So your overpower damage, as you've seen, is disgustingly strong. It allows for Tides of Blood to just rip through things. It's just completely disgusting. And we're going with the Blood Golem here because it's thematic, but they drain life from nearby enemies to heal and bolster themselves. So it keeps them healthy to get their attack speed and damage bonus. Also upgrade 2, while healthy, again, your Blood Golems gain 25% DR and 50% damage increased, because you're also, of course, going with Golem Mastery, which is 75% life and damage increase for your golems. This is a really, really low rated build. I'm not going to lie to you. If you looked at, say, another website, this would be an F tier build. But I promise you, I am clearing content without a goddamn problem, because the amount of overpower that we're stacking up the butt of this build is really strong. And I'm going to be honest, Blood Lance is not the optimal choice, I don't think. I think probably the optimal choice is Blood Surge, because Blood Surge has built-in Fortify. So if you check off your Fortify, it's going to even further increase your overpower damage because it's the sum of those two numbers. Also too, this heals you. So Blood Surge, I think, is a way to really tip this thing off in a really good direction. And you get Bloodseeker's aspect here so that the Blood Lance deals additional damage per target lanced. And the last thing is you get Aspect of Explosive Mist. So now Blood Mist triggers Corpse Explosion. You no longer cast it. You remove it from your bar. This is what your bar would look like. You have Blood Mist on it. So what you do is you cast Blood Mist, which makes you immune, your movement speed increases, and you heal. And everything you touch explodes as a corpse. It is such a fun ability, and it is one of my favorite builds in the game. So at that, it brings our video here to a close. Now, I know some of these builds are not the min-max absolute best. If I wanted to show you all the min-max absolute best, I would have shown you the Bone Necromancer. I would have shown you a different type of Druid. I think a lot of people are going with a bunch of different builds. But this is what I cannot stress on enough. As I said it in the beginning of the video, it's just as important now. Play the build that you want to play. Play the game how you want to play it. If I've given you some ideas of how to play a specific type of class, then please take them and make the build you want to make. Because I think that it's too often that we play ARPGs, action RPGs, and we force ourselves into playing some sort of meta build, and we end up basically just playing someone else's version of the game rather than the one that we want. And one of the biggest strengths of Diablo IV is being able to have such good build variety and such good ability balancing that you can really have a lot of fun in however the hell you want to do it. So please use these as a guideline, use them as a literal guide, whatever you want to do. Hopefully it helps you out in your start of Diablo IV. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.